Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. You're going to have to bear with us because, as Diana said, last night was quite a big night at the Magnum party, but we have managed to preserve our voices for you all today. Um, let's just give you a bit of an introduction to what we're talking about and who you have on stage. So, Magnum is nearly 40 years old, can you believe it? They started defining a whole new category. It was the first time a chocolate-covered vanilla ice cream bar had been put on a stick. Best invention since sliced bread. But since then, over the last sort of nearly 40 years, there's been so many competitors entering in the space to try and emulate that iconic brand. So in this day and age, we're looking at here today, sort of how can we stand out from competitors? How are we going to recruit younger consumers? But equally, how are we going to do that in a rapidly changing media environment? So here to talk about that, you'll see we've got Tugce Aksoy, who is the Global Brand Director at Magnum. We've got KJ Flynn, who's Head of Consumer at Golin London, and Kate Garcia, who's the founder at the Edje. We'll give you a little more detail as we walk through about their companies, their roles, and you'll see why we think they're experts in talking about this today. So first off, I think it's not exactly a big secret, is it? Every single brand on the planet is chasing Gen Z. So why are they such an important consumer audience for you guys?
It kind of broke my heart when you say almost 40 because I was born same year with Magnum. So I felt
You're the original Magnum child.
Yes, indeed. But indeed, as you say, Magnum actually is the first adult chocolate ice cream. Before that, there was only like kiddie popsicles, different colors. And Magnum came with the promise of adult pleasure. And from the first day, it was all about building that. And there is a generation that grew up with it. So for the millennials, actually, it's Magnum. Like, there's no other choice. Like, you need to get it. It's the best ultimate pleasure. But then Gen Z was born into the world, into a world of abundancy, of options, of copycats, of different propositions. And it has been not that easy to treat them as the same as millennials because we cannot also take them for granted. They cannot really promise, commit to one thing, and they have a different attention span. They're on different media channels, and it has been actually a total think through of like, how do we get to that audience? Because now they grew up to be our core audience. Gen Z is now like 18 to 30 almost, so they grew up. So they're very much there. So before, while we were targeting like the millennials and could actually rely on getting to them through TV and through like one message, now we are being faced with different communities, like very strong passion points, very strong fandoms. And to be able to get them, it's not only okay to be a brand, like you need to actually customize yourself into their attention span. So that's why actually for us, yes, they are very big, of course, as an opportunity of consumer, but also we need to get them through a totally different way. And that's why we have a big focus on understanding them better.
And I think it's sometimes tough, we are a heritage brand, we created this category, but when you've created the category, how do you evolve with a changing media landscape? Because actually, these different formats, different brands that are coming through. Tugce talks about the abundance of options that are out there for Gen Z, and there are. And those brands, because they're new into the market, they're so dynamic, they're so agile. And actually, we're a heritage brand, and we have to, really think about how we can, bring that dynamism as well. So the campaign that we launched yesterday, which we're going to go into more detail about, we really keep interrogating ourselves, like, are we being dynamic enough for this new audience?
So you were talking about being dynamic for this audience and finding what kind of connects for them. And that's really kind of cutting into culture, right? That's kind of how you move from this complicated, ever-evolving media landscape, moving away from TVC and trying to connect something it's better suited to Gen Z. They're on their phone, they're not watching TV, right? So it's cutting into culture. Is that the kind of way you're cutting into the landscape?
Yeah, it is. I think it's also, you mentioned there about TVC. TVC was king for such a long time, but actually for this audience group, it plays a role, but it's not the whole role. And I think, what we really try to challenge ourselves as a brand on is how we can earn conversation. Obviously, I come from a comms and a PR background, so earning conversation is something that we're quite well versed in, but we've definitely seen this sort of pendulum swing in marketing to moving towards earning conversation rather than paying your way into it. And that is because this audience, younger demographics, they're they need to understand what you are providing to them as a brand, whether that is experiences, whether that is access to things. They also, they are part of a community themselves, and it's how we really tap into those communities. But in order to do that properly, you've got to be really authentic. Like, we don't have the luxury of just broadcasting one way out to audiences anymore. So we spend a lot of time really thinking about the data and the insights to get to that really salient, emotive point that will really resonate. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we've done with that with Magnum. And actually, I think that, we really need to double down on creating these experiences and creating these like points of access within culture for people, and, acting as a brand that can provide more to them. And I know that's something that you heavily focus on as well at the Edge, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we all know that experiential is more important than ever before with Gen Z consumers of this changing media landscape. Luckily, we are category leaders in experiential. It's something that we've been doing for over a decade. But we're constantly innovating to stay ahead of the curve and offer really those richer, exciting experiences, because what we see is that, for example, on socials, the most shared content on Magnum is all the experiential content. So we know that that's what these consumers love, and they expect it. They expect more exclusive, more unique content than ever before. Experiential now is cutting edge. We talked about this earlier, but post-COVID, it's just more exciting than ever before, and we need to be constantly up there, and that's why we're constantly innovating, and we've got some very exciting new stuff this year.
And actually, experiential and social are very connected as well, as Kate said, because when you actually create those like cues in the physical world, it translates into virality in social in a way as well. And then through that, actually giving that access to fans, we have seen that in the couple of years, we have taken a bit of risk as well, because we have actually really flexed the brand. Like, we don't have that strict guidelines anymore. We have principles, but then we actually are very much flexible with tone of voice, with what we offer, etc. And we see it pays back. Like last year, actually, we have been chosen as one of the top 20 most loved Gen Z brands in Europe, which was a really proud thing for us, because this is a very hard thing to get. We know that their attention is indeed very hard to get, but the combination of actually earning that conversation, the social, the community building, and giving that experience access has been a key thing for us to crack that.
But I think that's where you as a brand have been incredibly brave as well, because when you take those, when you're creating TV ads or when you're creating out of home, you have full control over that. And often we have conversations and it's like, actually, we need to relinquish the control of this brand. But the benefit of being a Magnum is we spent 40 years establishing this brand. So actually allowing, communities, fandoms, consumers to come into our world and play around with our brand. We feel quite confident, in doing that. And that's why all these experiences and all the social around those experiences is so important, because we use these communities and the fandoms of the talent that we work with, we use them as our mouthpiece now. And so we have to bring them in really, really authentic ways.
We should just say the last thing we should say is that, being here at Cannes, we haven't touched on that, but it's insane. Like, when we were there in the party last night, and you kind of pinch yourself. You're like, we have the biggest, best party on the Croisette now. It's the most anticipated, the crowds to try and get in, and it's Magnum ice cream. Right? Like, we're at this luxury event, and we are the place to be as a Magnum ice cream brand, and that's really an incredible position to be in.
But I think you're a luxury ice cream, right? We're not sat here talking about a Louis Vuitton handbag, but it is luxury ice cream. And you've talked about giving up control to allow Gen Z to play with the brand, to play with the content and experience it in a different way. How did you get comfortable with almost being sort of not in control? It's sort of comfortable with the uncomfortable and the unknown to allow Gen Z content creators to play with the brand, play in your space, and work through these experiences through their own lens. That's quite a big thing to do.
It's terrifying sometimes.
I think you never be comfortable with it, to be honest. You always take risks.
We've got quite a lot of PTSD from last night.
Yeah, indeed. you need to take risks, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Like, you need to test and learn as well. But what I've learned in the past, I think 5-6 years of especially opening up in social is like, we have started talking about even our tone of voice. Is it the right tone of voice for the consumers audience we are talking with? Because if you are like that strict, that like polished, that staged, it doesn't really get across. And you see that actually lots of luxury brands are doing it right now. Lots of them are actually now, you see the content in TikTok and you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe that they're sharing this. But they're kind of opening up their creative universe to people to play a part. And that's what consumers want. They want to be part of it. They want to be playing with it. They want you to comment on their posts with a heart or like, you know, showing that they're seen. So I think that's a lot. But the biggest risk for me was, I always give this example. The year of Miley Cyrus 2022, I remember like we started the campaign. Miley had a huge fandom and she had fan accounts of 40,000 followers each. And they took our assets and they started playing with it. They started making key visuals, like packaging. They were doing polls. Should Magnum launch a cherry Miley or a pistachio Miley? And like the artworks, oh my God, you would say, like, I don't approve this, like take it off, you know, online. But now, like we have seen how much attention it gets, it performs better than our own assets sometimes. So when you see the rewards, you start taking a bit risks. And this is where it's very important to work with the right partners, the right creative partners. Because once you trust into their world and then you give them the keys, then it's fine. And you have the right agency partners, like your earned partners, your experienced partners, your fandom partners. And then you try to navigate this in the best way. But it is never comfortable, but it's rewarding, I think.
So do you think relinquishing some of that control but setting it up in the right framework is a critical part of cutting into culture?
Yes.
And bringing Gen Z on the journey with you?
100%, I agree. Yeah.
But thinking about, so terrible time now after thinking about the party last night and all the joy there, you know, this year in particular, we've seen a lot of pricing pressures.
Yeah.
And I think for any brand, you know, the pricing element is a big consideration to think about. How does this model work when you've got consumers who are looking to kind of trade down and out? Mm-hmm. How do you keep them engaged and reaffirming to them that really their luxury ice cream of choice should be a Magnum?
Yeah. I think this will always happen at times of like economic crisis as well, and like it's a lot of resiliency that the brand needs. But what we know is we always look at what people care about, what people want to pay more, and this changes from category to category, time to time, audience to audience. But from our latest, we know that actually people want to feel special. They want something different. They want high quality. They want something recommended by the friends and fans of the brands. Like they want to feel that trust. So based on that, we also go back a step and think, okay, how do we make people feel special? I think yesterday's party is a good example. Like when you're there, you see that every detail is thought of. You're going into a close community of people who feel like-minded to you, and you're having fun. You feel you can be yourself. You're surrounded by the best ice cream, like that experience, etc. But also we go into insights, and maybe KJ actually can talk a little bit more about it. But this year for us, it was all about going back to what makes Magnum Magnum. What do people really care about this brand? You know, there can be 1,000 competitions, but why do you go for Magnum? And we really dive into this to understand what makes them special. And that's why our Crack into Pleasure campaign started. So maybe KJ can give a bit of a background on
Yeah, I think when you've been around for as long as Magnum have, there are so many different distinctive brand assets, you know, that you have to play with. And I remember the conversation 18 months ago, it's like, what are we doubling down on? What direction are we taking this in to stop people trading down or out of Magnum? You know, we talked earlier about all the different options that are available out there now, and actually we really needed to understand what created that emotional connection. So we actually used AI to trawl European wide supermarket reviews, so that when people don't buy a Magnum and they trade down, or when they do buy a Magnum, what is it that they love and what is it that they miss, essentially. And one of the things, the resounding things that came out across all different supermarket reviews was that actually it is the crack of that chocolate. So if any of you eat Magnums regularly, when you bite into that cracking chocolate, which is one of our distinctive brand assets that we have protected in many, many ways over the years, that's what has that sort of real emotional connection and that real moment of pleasure. So when we looked at all the distinctive brand assets that were in front of us and trying to decide what to double down on, it was so obvious that was what it was meant to be. That then gave us the confidence to take the crack into so many different places. So you'll see it in our TVC. If it doesn't crack like a Magnum, then it's not a Magnum. We then were able to take that into earned, into social. I mean, we keep talking about it as a party, but it's a huge global campaign that we launched yesterday called Crack into Pleasure. And creating that red thread across all of those different disciplines and channels, and keep repeating that message to people that, you know, creating this distinctive brand asset and the sonic branding of the crack of a Magnum, it really gives us so much to go on, but making sure that all of those different channels and disciplines are coming together under one creative red thread. So we'll talk a little bit more about the campaign shortly.
But that's quite an authentic element, right? All the brand elements there. There's nothing that's been part of the heritage for 40 years, the crack. But it's also in that juxtaposition of when times are tough, you're looking for something that's premium. Why trade down? Because you shouldn't be compromising on that moment. It's that almost little luxury. And that's really where the experiences play, isn't it, Kate?
Absolutely. So I think experiential has been absolutely key to this strategy of worth paying more for Magnum. So it's been really a big driver of brand equity building over the years. This has been something, as I say, that's been a decade in the making, but even being here at Cannes, but creating these products that are so unique. Like, we can spray designs onto a Magnum, you know, like fashion designs onto a Magnum.
I had about
that
3
is
Brat
worth
versions
Yeah.
yesterday. Yeah, the
Well,
Brat
today
green
at
Brat.
3 p.m. also it will be open for everyone.
Yeah,
if you
to
want
go
to
to-
join and have a Magnum in customized way, it will be there.
Exactly. I mean, it's highly customized. There's 200,000 possibilities of a Magnum in a dipping bar. You know, you can really personalize. You can put your name on a Magnum. I mean, these are the things that people will pay more for. And we really deliver the value, by the way. Like, it's created beautifully. We really work hard to make it feel like a luxury experience. And that drives equity. We know, we've done an equity study on this, and it's proven that basically will drive more likelihood of standard purchase in the supermarket. So, it's a very tried and tested formula now for us.
So you've been able to cut into culture with experiences and using authenticity around the product, things that you know Gen Z want to engage with, what they're prepared to trade down on and what they're not. So then when we're here today, we're in Cannes, right? So you told me about the authenticity here, you deploying it in kind of critical moments and places, curating the communities and the fandoms around that. But so how does Cannes fit into all of that? Because again, you know, we're not a Louis Vuitton handbag. It's a luxury ice cream that you will find in Carrefour, in Dia, in Tesco, supermarkets all across the world. So why is Cannes Film Festival so important for you in cutting into culture?
What a question. I mean, there are so many reasons why we are at Cannes that go from the really tactical and functional right through to the fact that we have been here for 13 years, and it means a huge amount to our brand and to our global markets as well. But ultimately, we talk about fandoms, communities, influencers, media, earning conversation. There is no other event in the world where you would get this many talent, influencers and media all on the ground in one place. If we would try to get the amount of influencers and media that we had in that room last night to a festival or to any other event, we would have to pay a huge amount of money. So we think quite efficiently about where do we need to go? Where do we need to go to, you know, to sort of galvanise around all of those different communities? And Cannes Film Festival is also a real sort of heritage part of our brand as well. You know, we've been here for 13 years, and it's a huge luxury experience. So it makes a huge amount of sense for us to be here as well. I don't know whether you wanted to add anything to it.
I mean, in the end, also, it is part of our passion points as well, because as a brand, we are an ice cream brand. We want to be the best tasting ice cream brand, but we also want to be a lifestyle brand, a little bit beyond that as well. So film, art, fashion, music, these are all our passion points that we have been building year on year. And I think in these 13 years also, yes, we have been in Cannes, but we have evolved a lot. We have come from a long way from an experience where there was like... it was all around like one big celebrity, and it was quite exclusive, and fans didn't get access to it. They could only see it like, you know, one picture on the newspapers at the time, etc. To today, actually, we are doing it by like finding the most relevant icon to this audience and giving them the whole creative key of the space. So last night was actually Charlie XCX, who is like the biggest icon of Gen Z right now. Sometimes we talk with like our leaders who are like around 50, 60 years old, and they're like, oh my God, all my teenage kids are like in love with her. So she's an amazing icon. We don't just partner with her because we think that she's an amazing face or she has a great voice, because she's an incredible creative brain as well. So that's why the party was also all curated and hosted by her. The whole lineup, the details, the products, like we had even like the Magnums that are Brat's screen, the XCX shake that is famous for her. So we do all the details around it, and then we give access to fans. So we have the friends and fans of the brand inside. If I think 50% of this party was actually content creators and the fans and friends, and they're all there. They love Charlie, and this ambience, this interaction creates an incredible amplification that is way beyond Cannes. So we are at Cannes to start and seed this, but it goes way beyond that. So that's why it's still very important for us, and we are keen to evolve it in a way that, like, actually it's a key thing for our partnerships, housing our partnerships.
I think partnering with Charlie, when we landed on her as a talent, her ability as a marketeer as well. You know, she has an incredible instinct. She's also got a fantastic team around her. And so the days of badging talent and just, you know, talent putting their face to a campaign, it just doesn't cut it, especially for Gen Z. They want to see things that are truly curated by that talent. And they want to see that the talent has had a real say in things. And again, that sometimes makes us so nervous. We've never handed that level of creative control over before. But, you know, we knew she was the right partner for us, and what we've been able to do in terms of creating product, creating experiences, creating moments for our creators and our pleasure seekers and our communities with her that we will take into market and then we'll roll out for the next year has been a journey, but B, one that we know that's going to have some really, really impactful results.
You keep saying that it's going beyond Cannes. And I'm sort of slightly confused. I might need you to explain, because I can see a really big beach setup that looks stunning and beautifully branded. Makes me want to dive into a Magnum, particularly the bakery you mentioned, which I think, Kate, you're going to tell us a little more about soon. But is this not just an event full of people that are from the festival, many French consumers? How are you actually making this global? Have I misunderstood?
So first of all, the audience also in the space is like quite global. Like we have actually content creators from all around the world, like 15 countries minimum, like that we register. So it is indeed like a global event for us. But also, in addition to that, like here, you give access to content creators and some of the fans, but it doesn't stop there. This is what we discussed about experiences, because experiences we only introduce in Cannes, but that's not the final stop. So maybe Kate can add a bit on this.
Yeah, so, well, firstly, we've got further experiences launching, obviously, throughout the rest of the year at some very exciting events and places.
Can you tell us a little sneak peek? Oh, come on, Kate, don't tease us.
I can't say yet, but it will be popping up in other places, obviously, around the world. In we've got some very exciting partnerships coming as well. Watch this space. But as I mentioned before, every year we're constantly innovating to stay ahead of the curve. So we're innovating our experiences, coming up with new ways to experience the product that really tap into cultural moments and trends. So, for example, this year we're launching for the first time at Cannes, but it will be rolled out now, the bakery concept. This taps into a huge trend that we're seeing for baked goods, bakeries. It's very, very trending right now, as well as this trend for kind of cross-categorization in experiential. So brands playing in like other spaces, whether they're doing a supermarket concept as a beauty brand, for example. Also, for us, it's a key social link because it's kind of this trending treats bakery. So the idea is it's basically bringing to life in recipes that are really super trending on social. So we're really responding to the community there. We're seeing what they love from all around the world, these recipe ideas that we're then bringing to life in this beautiful Magnum bakery, and it has been a massive hit. So we've got the Magnum croissant, we've got the M bun, which is almost like an ice cream burger, like a slider. We've got these little maca bonbons, we're calling it the world's smallest ice cream sandwich, and they're just super delicious, and we've brought in the butter yellow kind of trend as well, so we're bringing that into the color scheme. So very trending and very kind of linked to socials.
And also we've curated some of that with our talent and with our creators as well, haven't we, to make sure that it all feels like one really sort of cohesive ecosystem as well. And I think that's really important. I think sometimes when brands partner with creators or talent, and we've been we've done this historically in the past. You know, we've gone way too down one track and we've not brought it back to product. And essentially we are here to sell ice creams. So I think we have to be really true to ourselves and keep linking things back to product, but in really, really interesting ways.
Because also people want to see ice cream, by the way. I think this is a different thing versus other categories, because we have been always told, actually, like, you shouldn't show so much of the product, it's not authentic, etc. But we are not a deodorant or a home care product. Like, people want to see the ice cream, like they want to see the details, etc. So I think that's the importance of the experience, but also importance of starting with the fans, the consumers, and ending with them. Starting with those insights, doing the work in between, and then going back and giving access to them. So that's the whole journey, I think.
And it sounds like you've just elevated each piece as well. So it's constantly cutting into culture, using the authenticity of the brand and the insights that you have, playing to a Gen Z audience, but giving them a premium experience, no matter what that touch point is. Ladies, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.